Am I live? 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 Okay, that's the way I always feel as I go into these things, making sure my microphone works. Put it a little closer to the mouth so that we get a good recording level. Hey, everybody. It is time to record the podcast. It is about 3 o'clock. I've been running around in a bee suit, so I just ran inside to get this started because I swarm outside and I'm running into problems on this one. So this swarm was out 2 days ago. I put it in a hive. It left the hive and went back to its old hive. Yeah, my bees do that. And then today it swarmed again, which is a sure sign it's not going to rain. I was hoping it would rain. And they are so low that they are in the grass. And I can't find the queen. And I've moved like as many bees as I could, and they all go back to that clump in the grass. So the queen is clearly on the ground. I don't know how to safely get her up. I do not have a bee vacuum. So now I'm out there like, here's this beautiful hive. I hope you guys like it. And I came back in here to record the podcast. So with that, I am going to get going. I posted on social too. So we're going to get garage bag going. I'm going to jump in. We're doing 3 ways to kickstart your fresh vegetable pipeline because some of us are running out of vegetables. They shall remain nameless. But I thought it'd be fun to talk about ways, in 3 to 7 days, jumpstart it, not like 3 to 7 months. So we'll get this going. Un momente. I don't speak Spanish, obviously. Okay, here we go. Welcome, everyone, to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you want to live on your terms, the terms you define, or you define with your family, however you want to approach that. Today is Wednesday, April 8th, 2020, and this is episode 292 of Living Free in Tennessee. And today we are going to talk through 3 ways to kickstart your fresh vegetable pipeline, especially if you are starting to run into grocery store shortages and you're too sick of canned food and frozen food. I've been hearing varied reports of fresh vegetable shortages, or on the converse side, way too many vegetables and they're getting thrown out in the street. What this means is the place that's producing them isn't always getting it to the place that wants them. And I just thought, well, now's a good time to talk about 3 ways to easily start getting some, fresh vegetables into your diet. This is not foraging. I could do a whole episode on foraging, as a matter of fact. So we'll jump into that in today's show. Also, it is Holler Hat Wednesday. Where is she and what is she doing? And I hope she's doing a good job of it. You can go over to Instagram and look at Nicole Sauce. That's me. And you'll see a picture of the hat. Just drop a comment there about where she is and what you think she's doing. Last week, of course, she was with me in my hand, upside down, with a bunch of morel mushrooms. Because after 14 years of looking, I finally found morels. And there's a rule at this time of year: don't leave the house without your neck knife for foraging, and don't leave your house without a plastic baggie in your pocket in case you find something interesting. And certainly don't leave your house without your phone. Well, I left my house with all 3 of those things not with me and ended up picking morels with my fingernails because I was trying to leave the bottom part of the mushroom in. And I had to turn my hat upside down and use it as a bag because I did not have a baggie. Okay, also, tomorrow's Thursday at noon Central Time. That's 1 Eastern, 11 Mountain, 10 Pacific. I'm going to be doing Introduction to Cheese Making as a webinar. It is free to members and $50 if you're not a member. So you can, and actually if you're in Jack's MSB, you get access to it as well. So that's over at livingfreeintennessee.com. If you go to the website, it's in the upper right-hand corner. If you go to the website on your phone, though, you have to scroll through the posts, click on register, use the coupon code from the membership portal. That'll get it to you. It'll knock the $50 off. If you have any trouble with that, email me. I've had a couple emails, no big deal. I'm going to cover the basics of cheese making supplies that you want to have on hand. So a way to make cheese with stuff you probably already have at home, as well as showing you, what I would call a beginning level cheese making, which is a feta is super easy to make. So that's on Thursday. And then later that day at 7, we are doing our weekly live from the Holler neighborhood live stream on YouTube. And we're going to talk about our food production plans for the Holler homestead this time. The last couple times we've just sort of taken whatever questions come in. I thought it'd be fun to have a topic of discussion. Maybe we'll get the other two neighbors talking so it's not just me talking, because I talk a lot on that. Finally, if you want to email feedback about the show or questions, you can do that. Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com, or go over to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on contact, fill out the form. It goes to me. Kind of cool that way. And actually, if you send me feedback about the show or things about what you're doing or comments right now, I am doing a listener feedback show on Friday, and I'm reading those emails aloud and commenting on them. With that, it's time for our first segment. And the first segment is Stump the Sauce. This is where you send me questions where you've come across something you're not quite sure what to do, or maybe you're bored with the things you're cooking every week and you have a few things in your fridge and you're like, hey, what would you do with this? Well, I got one in from Christopher this week. He says, got to stump the sauce for you. What to do with coffee grounds that are old and no longer make good coffee? Wow, this one like hits me right in the heart. Good coffee. I love good coffee. Here's the deal. Storing coffee as coffee grounds, I can understand why you do it, but it just goes stale faster. Even if it's sealed, it goes stale faster. That's why most craft roasters send whole beans out. However, sometimes people will have ground coffee. And if you have really old ground coffee and are looking for something to do with it that's useful, take the coffee, open your door, walk outside, go to your compost bin and pour it in there and stir it up. It makes great compost. Okay, well, maybe that's not quite what Christopher was going for. Another thing you might use it for, a couple of things. Really stale coffee can be made in a very strong concentration and used for Kahlua, although the Kahlua is better if you use fresh coffee. Red eye gravy, which you take the drippings from ham and you make a gravy, and the liquid is the coffee. And that's called red eye gravy. It's really tasty. That's another way you can use it up. If you make soap, you can do coffee infused soap with the coffee. I know Salima somehow magically makes body butter that's from coffee. So think about things where you're not going to be tasting the coffee, basically, and use it that way. And as I said, it actually does make quite good compost. I guess the last thing is, if you're into mushrooms like I am, you can grow mushrooms in coffee grounds. So look into that. Maybe do a round of oysters and see how that works for you. Next segment is What's Up in the Homestead. Well, as I mentioned before the show, when I kicked off the YouTube live stream, we have a swarm of bees, and it's been out once, and then it decided not to go into the hive I put it in. It went back to its old hive. And somehow, like, two queens are coexisting in the old hive. I've heard this can happen. The bees just kind of keep them from coming across each other, and everybody pretends that there's not two queens, and then one doesn't kill the other one. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, it's a ginormous swarm, and I really, really want the bees. And today they are hanging out pretty much in the grass at the bottom of the shrub. I'm hoping when I get done with this, they will have either moved into the hive I've prepared for them, moved into the bee trap that's out for them, or are high enough up on the shrub that I can take some hand loppers, which I couldn't find because I think they got taken home with their owner, and cut the branch off and put it on top of the hive I think that they would so like to move into, because it's already got honeycomb, guys. It's got lemongrass oil. It's essential oil. It's supposed to make bees love it. It's got honeycomb in there. It's all clean. Like, I don't know why they're not going into the hive. They're just being pills. But hopefully they've either gone in or they've gone higher up on the shrub. Also, we are into the weed 1.0 season, which means it's time to start weeding already in the gardens and things. And I'm getting tons of just ugh. And if you don't keep up on it now, you end up with weeds over your head in Tennessee. We are adding a whole bunch of homestead produced meats and vegetables because, well, we've got nothing better to do. We're just sitting around the homestead, right? So we've been talking about ways to get more value out of the land, more food off the land in a way we can manage. And we'll be covering a lot of that detail. That is the topic of discussion for the live stream, so I'm not gonna go into it here. I may cover things one at a time afterwards, just about our plans. We've gotten back into beer brewing here, so our first batch of beer has just gone on the keg. I tasted a little bit of it last night, even though I'm not drinking alcohol because of my keto thing. And beer's also not on the list of acceptable for keto, but I had to taste it, and oh my god, it's so good. I mean, I stopped brewing before I moved to Tennessee, haven't brewed since I've gotten here. I've been here for 15 years, and, hmm, I guess I should have never stopped that because I make some pretty good beer. That's all I'm saying. So we're doing that. It's all in an effort to reduce to increase frugality of the home economics here and reduce dependency on outside sources for the things we can control. Anyway, that's our regular segments. With that, it's time for the main topic of today's show: 3 ways to kickstart your fresh vegetable pipeline. And I react to comments on Facebook and that sort of thing. I've been hearing a lot of people who don't have fresh vegetables, or they go to the store and they're crappy looking, or they don't have any. And I was thinking, even in a small space, you can get some fresh vegetables that you produce at home, which just adds a little spice. And it can keep you from, well, getting bored with your food. Vitamins that you get from fresh vegetables are nice. And I don't know, just psychologically for me, if you've been existing on pantry items and your food's not exciting, it's a good way to spice it up. And, I go back to right now, the world is a little scary. I know you needed me to tell you that because you probably haven't noticed, but it's unpredictable, and change is scary. And we don't know what the economy is going to do after this whole COVID thing's done. We don't know. Some of us have already lost jobs. We don't know if we're keeping our jobs. I talked to a neighbor yesterday who got reduced in hours. We just don't know what's going to happen. And there are two things you can do when something like this is going on. The funny thing is, like, you can do what I do. I'm going to kick myself in the butt and get some context. The world is always unpredictable, right? Well, okay. Well, we have a specific thing going on right now that makes it even less predictable. You can obsess about it. You can worry about it. You can watch it happen blow by blow by blow, or you can step out and say, okay, what can I do to increase stability in my life, or to make things a little better for myself and my family? And then you can go do those things. And, some of us will come out of being forced to stay home, 20 pounds fatter, having watched a whole lot of Netflix. Some of us will come out with new skills, new projects completed in the house, new focus for our lives, maybe even a new business today. And I'm still sticking to keto mostly based on what stores are here. And dang it, I want to have good food. So I thought, if I was in a situation where I hadn't already started a lettuce growing system, which takes a little time to ramp up, well, what could I do that's pretty fast? And here's the first one that came to mind. And it's the first one I ever did when I had, a need to grow something and not a lot of time to, and that's grow sprouts, like alfalfa sprouts. The sprouts you can get at the store in a little plastic thing. You can grow those. And the way you do that is you find sprouting seeds. And most of my sources for sprouting seeds that are like super awesome and sold out are sold out. But if you go to Amazon right now, you can get a mix of seeds, or you can get alfalfa sprouts, or you can get broccoli seeds. Like any of these things, you can get Amazon Prime delivered to your door. And I know there are some delays in shipping, but it's not that bad. I ordered strawberries on Friday. They arrived today. Okay. So sometimes Amazon is saying you won't get it for a month and you get it the next week. Other times you really won't get it for a month. But sprouting seeds are easy to get your hands on. Amazon seems to be prioritizing future food as well as current food in their delivery. And then in the next idea, it's also something that requires seeds. You can use many of those seeds for making sprouts. The thing you want in sprouting seeds is something that's not treated with a chemical And I was talking to a buddy who did a whole bunch of research on like broccoli seeds, and he's like, none of them are treated with a chemical. I buy mine when they're on closeout, and I buy them in bulk, and then I use them. Right. So just know your sources well. And then sprouting, all you got to do, if you have a mason jar, you have a sprouting situation. And you soak the seeds. What I do, I put a tablespoon of sprouting seeds in. I fill up the mason jar, I use a quart, no, a pint, not a quart. So I fill up the pint jar about halfway, and then I put it in where my drinking glasses are, close the cabinet so it's in the dark overnight. In the morning, I strain the water from the sprouting seeds, and then, so it kind of gets the moisture out of there, but they're wet now. And then I spread them out. I like shake the jar so they're on the side, and put them back in my water glass cabinet, close the door, and once a day, every morning, takes 30 seconds, I rinse them. So you get them wet again. You're basically watering them. By day 3, I usually have sprouts. By day 5, I certainly have sprouts. I leave them in the dark until the last day when I think, self, these are big enough that I want to eat them. And then I put them on the windowsill to get a little light, and they green up. You can eat them without greening them up, but I like to green them up. That's sprouts. That's the 3 to 5 day turnaround, man. That's pretty darn cool. Now, there's something that can make your life a lot easier with sprouts. And that two ways to do this. One, and I've put a link in the show notes. And for those of you watching the live stream, I've actually got the link in advance in the show notes. I'm proud of myself on this one, because usually I do the whole recording, guys, and then I go to put the links in the show notes. I forget 2 of them I said I was going to, and that's the life of a podcaster who like comes up with ideas on the fly. So the links in the show notes. They make a wide mouth mason jar round metal puck that's got metal screening. So if you have one of those, you can put the sprouts in the jar, screw the lid on with that little metal screeny thing. In the morning, to strain it out, you just dump the jar upside down and kind of shake it over the sink, and kind of shake it sideways and put it back in the cabinet. And then every day what you're doing to rinse those is you just leave the lid on at that point, right? You just put the water in through the top, swish it around, then dump the water out and shake it a few times and put it sideways again. I have found that it works best if I have a bowl under the jar and I put it kind of diagonal on its side, not completely on its side, because it'll drip out a little bit more water, and you don't want to drown the seeds. You want them to sprout and have oxygen. So that tool for me, guys, has been great. But if you don't have that and you have a porous fabric, you can put the fabric over the jar and screw the lid down and use it in exactly the same way. If you have a little extra window screen in your woodshed or your garage, you can cut that into little squares and use the wide mouth mason jar ring, or a narrow mouth for that matter. It doesn't have to be wide mouth. I just really like wide mouth jars. Any of those work to make this even easier, so you don't have to be pouring the sprouts out into a strainer and then back into a jar. Some people I know even put a little bit of wet paper towel in there with them. I don't do that. And then if you don't have mason jars, but you have those like clamshell things that greens come in, like little ones, you can totally do it in those too. I've done it in those. I just prefer the mason jar because A, I have the lid attachment, and B, I have a million mason jars around. Okay, so that's my first idea. Second idea is, drumroll, microgreens. I added microgreens to my crack key system last week, and I'm really happy to have direct access to John Dowie of Dowie Farms, who does microgreens professionally. He supplies restaurants. He's had to quickly shift, guys, to giving microgreens to normal people, like direct to consumer sales, and it's been a bit of a whirlwind for him. But I called him up and I was like, okay, this is what I have on hand. How do I do this again? Because he does great videos. In fact, I have a link to his website, and you can find him on YouTube. He does some of the best microgreens videos I've seen. Anyway, what you do is you choose a kind of microgreen you want. And the one I started with this week was borage, B-O-R-A-G, I think is how you spell that. And it makes a sprout that's about, or a microgreen that's about 2.5, 3 inches tall with a very big, wide green head on it. And so I called him and I said, okay, just remind me, how many days, that sort of thing. And what can I use if I don't have 10 by 20 trays, because I don't have 10 by 20 trays. And we just talked through it. And he was super helpful. And what I ended up doing is this. Borage is one of the seeds, like black oil sunflower seeds, which is what I've just started today, that likes to have weight on the seed for it to germinate. And so what you do is just like sprouts, man, you soak the seeds. For borage, you're soaking it for 12 hours. So I decided that meant overnight. And I put an ounce and a half for a 10 by 20 tray, even though I don't have a 10 by 20 tray, in a mason jar. Whoa, shock. Filled it with water, let it soak overnight. And then to prepare a tray, I took perlite, which I ordered from Home Depot for $10 a bag. And I got the wrong kind because it's the tiny perlite, not the big perlite. John said, that's not a problem. It'll work. Just use even more of that than you would. So I've got about 85% perlite and 15% potting soil in there. And I made it about an inch thick. And I wore a respirator while working with the perlite because it's really dusty and you don't want to inhale that crap. And I don't have an N95 mask I'm willing to put on and waste. So did that. And then I took it to my kitchen sink and I sprayed it. And guess what I used for a tray? Because I don't have 10 by 20 trays. I have 10 by 20 trays with holes. I don't have 10 by 20 trays without holes. So I basically sprayed it with water and let that perlite just really soak up the moisture. Okay. And then I took my soaked borage seeds and I sprinkled them kind of evenly over the top, as evenly as I could. And then I took paper towel and put it over the top. And then I wet that down too, to just kind of keep some moisture on top of that. And then I took another container of the same kind that I'm going to use for another kind of microgreen, which I've already started today, which is black oil sunflower seeds. And I put the perlite and soil mixture in there, and I put that on top of the paper towels. That then goes in a dark place. So the cool thing is this does not have to take up space in my grow lighted area until it's the last couple of days to make it green. So what I've done since then is take it out once a day in the afternoon and water it from the top. So as of last night, my borage was, after 7 days, I think it's been about 7 days, tall enough that it's time to green it off. And borage takes about 3 days under grow lights to green it off. I have my grow lights on an 18-hour cycle. If you don't have grow lights, guys, you put it outside in the sun. And you got to keep it watered. So I've been madly keeping up with the water on this. And then because I was taking it out to go under lights, I decided I want another kind of microgreen in about 7 to 10 days. So last night I soaked black oil sunflower seeds also overnight. Okay, you see how this goes? Every type of seed has a different weight. So I did 2.5 ounces of the black oil sunflower seeds. Same thing this morning. I sprinkled it over that mix. And then because the container is the same size as the borage container, to weight it down, I actually have it under the borage container under the lights, which may not be ideal, but it's what I have on hand. And I am doing this without going to the store, guys. So what I used for my containers are these, like, you get them at the Dollar Tree, and they're not 10 by 20, but I think they're probably about the same square inches. And it's turkey, like those disposable aluminum turkey containers. I had 3 of them in the workshop in a bag waiting for my and used the bottom one for watering. But I wasn't thinking that through very well. So my first one I started in the one without holes, and that's the borage right now. And then now the black oil sunflower seeds has one that has holes poked in it. So when I water it, the water goes through and I don't have to worry about drowning the seeds. Well, this will make my life easier as soon as I harvest that borage, because what the better way to water microgreens is to bottom water. So what you do is you take a tray without holes and you put water in it, and then you take the tray with the microgreens in it with the holes, and you put it on top of that, and then it just sucks up whatever water it needs from underneath, and you add water for the rest of the time from underneath. So you don't have to top water it. Okay. So that's microgreens. Those are ready in 7 to 10 days. Some of them can last for 2 weeks after they're ready to harvest. And other things you can do microgreens from: radish, broccoli, kale, cabbage. And the cool thing about it is it's ready to eat super fast. And it adds a little color. So if you're doing wild foraging like I am, and we've had a lot of watercress lately, which I really like, it's going to add color and flavor. Or if you're sick of the same lettuce mix that you're growing, it adds color and flavor. Or if you don't have any, grow a whole boat ton of microgreens, and you will have a microgreen salad, once or twice a week, which is really nice to add if you're having trouble getting fresh vegetables. Or you can sprinkle it on your tacos, put it in your sandwiches, all sorts of stuff that you can do with microgreens, and they're super easy to grow. Again, every seed takes a little bit different handling versus weighted on top or not, or grown with a cover on top or not to keep it in the dark, for example. There's just lots of different ways to do it. And you can use just about any container that holds water to do microgreens. It's just a matter of what do you have around, or do you want to get 10 by 20 trays? My long-term goal, because I have roughly 500,000, okay, not that many, but I think I have at least 50 10 by 20 trays with holes in it, is to get myself 2 to 3 10 by 20 trays that those will fit in, that do not have holes in it, so that I can do the bottom watering. Or I'll just get a really big tray that takes several trays in one, and I just put the water in. And the neat thing about this, guys, is you don't need to add nutrients. The nutrients in the soil. You do need to add potting soil. I'm going to try one with just the perlite, but I wanted to make sure I had microgreens right now, because I'm in a bit of a lull time in my lettuce. So I'm going to harvest 1 or 2 more cuttings off the lettuce in my indoor grow system, and it's time to replace the whole thing. I started 40 heads of lettuce. Well, lettuce and dill and whatever else goes in the lettuce mix I'm making. 40. Because I have 20 outside, I have 20 inside, and that's just keeping up with our salad consumption. And I should have started them a week sooner than I did. So the microgreens are doing a bit of a fill-in for me. And then, of course, the plantain is perfect for harvesting right now. So I'm going to be throwing plantain and dandelion in our salads, none of which is terrible, but I was hoping to keep my salad production going, and I got a little off phase with what I was doing last week. So the microgreens are there. Again, John Dowie Farms. Check out his website. He actually sells the 10 by 20 trays if you want to really get into this, or if you want to do group buy. I think it's 100 per case that he sells. And so if you're going to buy 100, you might want to find 10 people to go in, so you each get 10 if you're not going to go do this professionally. And he's got some great videos on YouTube. Also, seed sources. So True Leaf, I think it's trueleaf.com, but the link's in the show notes. Trueleafmarket.com, actually. It's really, you can buy like a pound bag of seeds, which is a lot of seeds for that, and it'll last you for batch after batch after batch. They're still shipping really fast. I ordered from them last week, and it took 5 days to get here. They do have a notice on their site that they may or may not, depending on how many orders they get, they're doing first come, first serve. And then Kitazawa, which is kitazawaseed.com out of California, another really good source for seeds. These seeds from these 2 sources, guys, can also be used as sprouts instead of microgreens. And the difference between sprouts and microgreens is that sprouts are smaller. You let microgreens go a little longer. Microgreens grow in dirt. Sprouts grow in water, right? So it's that simple. So that's my second idea. And then idea number 3, get your butt on Facebook or Craigslist or Nextdoor and go to one of your community pages right now and do the following. Write a post. Hi, it's clear to me that the local food system needs our support because the commercialized food system is having shortages. And so we now more than ever need to support local food sources. So if you are a producer of local food, please post your farm name, what you have for sale, and how we can get it. Yeah, seek local growers who sell direct to consumer. I just spoke to the Smith family farm in Lebanon, Tennessee, and asked if he's doing direct to consumer. And he said right now they've shifted from restaurants to specialty grocers that are feeding the community, and that May 1st they launched their, on farm pickup. But there are tons of people producing. The local dairy where I'm getting my goat's milk has some herd shares open, and it has much lower volume of cheese sales because she usually has a storefront, and now she's doing pickup only. If you start putting your feelers out for who has stuff for sale locally, you're going to find your local produce growers have something probably, right? And then you can start propping them up. Maybe after this whole thing is over, you'll still buy from them. And then maybe they'll be there and they'll be bigger next time there's a shortage to the pipeline of the national food system. We're seeing pictures of these piles of yellow squash just sitting on the ground in Florida in front of farms. I talked to somebody who went on a drive to go get, some vegetables direct from the farm because they figured since they didn't have them in the store, they could go direct to the farm. Pulls up and there's just trucks dumping produce on the side of the road. And so that person picked up a bunch of produce, put a post out on her community, and started giving it to people. Because she figured, why let it go to waste if it's just on the side of the road? It's totally edible. And, that opportunity might be in your community too, depending where you are and where you are in the growth cycle. So it's kind of a weird time when some of the people producing are overproducing and unable to get stuff shipped properly. Other people are producing locally but don't have a lot of support. In my community, I've been watching with horror as fewer and fewer farmers are farming. And if you don't have local production, then you don't have local production to fall back on in times of stress, like if a tornado comes through and your trucks can't get in. Right now, if a tornado comes through and takes out that farm, then obviously you don't have that food. But it's really important to have food diversity. And no, I don't think we should just kill the commercial food system completely. I think, in other times when famine and terror hits an entire area and wipes it out, communities around them need to provide that support, right? So there does need to be a means for transporting it. But if you seek local growers and you support them now, A, you're helping out somebody who may need your business, and B, you have a much more stable supply. That relationship that you develop is there for years to come, and that's what you can fall back on. So go to Nextdoor, Craigslist, Facebook. If somebody hasn't already started this post, start it. I started one on mine today just because I couldn't believe nobody has. So, we have this local happenings in DeKalb County. That's where I live. And I was seeing the occasional restaurant or somebody post, "Hey, I have this for sale." But I was thinking, well, let's have one post where people put it in the comments so that I can be like, oh, there's dairy, there's vegetable, there's coast. And then you know who to go to in your local area, if they deliver or if it's pickup, all of those things. So those are my 3 ideas for kickstarting your fresh vegetable pipeline right now, with your 3 to 5 day turnaround on sprouts, 7 to 10 days on microgreens, and tomorrow if you get something from your local area. So what are your ideas? How else would you start getting your food produced from the local area? Like if you have friends who can't get fresh produce, what are you telling them? I'd like to know. Drop your comments in the comments on the website or over on Facebook or me. We will start a conversation on this. And in keeping with doing this, I have a bonus webinar coming up. So I'm doing a webinar every Thursday at noon at this point for the rest of the month. Next week, we're going to be talking on this topic only a little bit longer term, and that's quick starting your spring garden in 2020. We're going to talk about that Thursday at 12 Central. And Tactical Redneck's going to join me. We're just going to talk about how to get that done because I've had a lot of questions about, well, I have a patch of grass, now what? Because, if you haven't started building your beds in the fall, which is the ideal time to do it for spring, you can still grow vegetables. And we'll talk about ways to do that on the webinar. Registration link will be up tomorrow for that right after the cheese making webinar is done in that same upper right hand corner of the website. And as I said, this month we're just doing them like all membership levels for free, or it's $50 per webinar. That said, if you want to support the work we're doing here, you can do it in two ways. One, become a member and then get all the free webinars. And that's over at livingfreeintennessee.com. Or two, go to hollowroast.com and get your coffee from me. I will roast it and ship it to you as fast as I can. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. Woo! Hi, Crystal. Oh, you were one of the people. You're probably the story I saw. I remember you got the tomatoes and you canned them. That was cool. I really wish that I had gotten 75 pounds of tomatoes for 15 pounds because we're almost out of salsa. That's not true. I have a case left, but we're going to be out of salsa before it's salsa canning season, and then I'm going to have to buy salsa. So, yeah, it's crazy just seeing those piles of groceries and then knowing from friends here they can't get it. Yeah, still canning. If I do that, I'm going to make my two redneck neighbors help me can if I get a score like that. I'm keeping my eyes open, but so far we got nothing. So thanks for joining the live stream. I am going to end it now and get this podcast produced. And then in between those two things, I need to look at that swarm of bees and see if it's decided to go where I want it to go. It probably hasn't because my bees are persnickety. Have fun, guys.